Students of first B.Sc. Today, I shall be dealing with the first lesson, the prose lesson that you have for study, a letter to a teacher by the school of Barbiana. Before I begin, I would like to say a few words about the author. The book Letter to a Teacher is one of the most powerful criticisms of the injustice of the conventional, that is the traditional education system. It is a book which is written by poor students. Now the text that you have to study, Letter to a Teacher, is actually an extract from this book. Okay. So this book was actually written by 8 students from the school of Barbiana, which is located in Italy, in 1967. These 8 students got together, they wrote a book against the traditional education system, and they got it published, and soon after the publication, the book became a bestseller, and it was translated to several or many languages. The book, that is Letter to a Teacher, was the outcome of a year-long collaborative project, and the project was coordinated by their teacher Lorenzo Milani towards the end of his life. So the school of Barbiana examined the class bias of our public schools, especially against the poor students, how the poor students are treated in the classroom by their teacher. So the boys here, the 8 boys who wrote this book, they use very clear language. Sometimes they show their anger through their language. They have developed certain challenging ideas. They support their ideas with data and also examples. The Letter to a Teacher was published in 1967, and the first English translation appeared in the year 1970. So this is a tribute to their teacher Don Lorenzo Milani after his death in the summer of 1967. The Letter to a Teacher, it is a powerful explanation of the feelings of the students about the subjects that were taught in the class and the way they were taught. So many valid questions are raised in this book. And so this book talks or tells us about the children who are exposed to a variety of overt and covert mechanisms used by the school to discriminate against poor students. Now, I would like to tell you about this great man who coordinated this book, who inspired these students. So this great man was um, a person or a priest by name Lorenzo Melani. As a young priest, Lorenzo Melani opened a night school and in a place called Calenziano. And there, the teaching experience in the night school, the teaching taught him the importance of having a relevant curriculum, a relevant syllabus, and also how to provide encouragement to the people or the students who want to study their lessons. So when he arrived to a place called Babiana, which is a small Italian village, he wanted to help the poor students living there. He noted that most of these poor students, these young boys, had flunked the school. They had failed. They were working in the fields because of their lack of education. They were bitter about their life situations. They had been discouraged from continuing their studies. So this young, now he was not young, this priest who arrived there in Babiana on seeing the plight of these poor peasant boys who came from the farming community, he brought 10 boys together. And these boys were aged between 11 to 13 years, and he gave them rigorous training, or he taught them for 8 hours a day, and for all the days, 6 or even 7 days of the week, they had to attend classes for around 8 hours. And soon, this school, which started with 10 students, later grew to a class of 20. And there were no teachers as such to teach these students, but the older boys taught the younger boys. And it was a different kind of a school setup. The boys were taught to analyze, to discuss the curriculum, and not only just the subjects or the syllabus or the lessons that were prescribed by the priest, but he coordinated their discussion, and they were made to come out with their feelings or to discuss what they did at home, how they worked in the field, and such things. Later, all these discussions were brought out in this book, Letter to a Teacher. So these discussions provided the base for the project that he wanted, or the book that he wanted to write, or he wanted his students to write, that is Letter to a Teacher. So before I begin the lesson, let me say a few words about the lesson. Once again, it is the same thing I've already explained. The Letter to a Teacher is a very strong letter, a powerful letter written by young students. And these young students express their feelings about the subjects taught in the school and the way in which they are taught by the teacher. So they express their feelings in this letter. Next, the lesson raises some important valid questions like what kind of education should be given to the students in the schools and colleges? What do the students actually need to study in the classroom? And what kind of education do we really give to the students? Does your classroom education help you once you are outside the portals of the college? How does it help you to get on with your life? So, as I told you, students, this letter to a teacher was written by 8 Italian boys from the mountains outside Florence, and it is a eloquent book, a book which brings out their feelings through fluent flow of language and thought. The whole book is very simple and clearly written, but it contains questions. It contains devastating analysis of the Italian education system. And through this book, the boys wanted to give a message not only to the education system in Italy, but also to the different parts of the world. And you see that this aim of these boys was achieved because this book was later translated into so many different languages, several languages, and it became a very popular book on the pedagogy or the way of teaching. So these boys, they set out to show the way in which attitude towards class, behavior, language and subject matter militated against the poor people. How this learning in the classroom was actually not helpful to the poor students who were coming to study in the class. They spoke about the high-handed attitude of the teacher and the behavior of the teacher, or the language that the teacher was using in the class, the materials that were being used in the class, the tests the way the tests were being conducted in the class, and how all this system of education was actually not helping the poor students. And it was not just pointing out, he was not just pointing out the problems that were faced by the students, but these 8 boys also gave suggestions, they gave advice on the reforms they proposed, the methods that should be used in the school of Babiana, under the guidance of a parish priest, which was now entirely run by students. The older students were now, after getting some kind of proficiency in the school, they started teaching their younger siblings or their neighbors, and they helped others to learn with the help of the parish priest. Now, students, let us look at the text. I don't think it shall be possible for me to complete the whole text today, though it is a very small poem. So I will just focus on a part of the lesson. The second part will come out as a second in the second video. So today I shall just be uploading just two paragraphs. I will explain two paragraphs, and the rest of the paragraphs will be explained in the second part. So let us look at the text. Those of you who have got your textbook, students, please turn to page 2. I will give you a line by line explanation as we go on. So the students are addressing the teacher by saying, "Dear Miss, you won't remember me or my name. You have failed so many of us." So from the very beginning, we see that the students are not happy with the attitude of the teacher, the behavior of the teacher. They're telling the teacher, "You definitely won't remember our names because you didn't care for us. And moreover, you have failed so many of us. You did not help us to pass. You failed us. And you have forgotten us. And you don't remember us. But on the other hand, what do the teachers, what do the students think about their teacher? Have they forgotten the teacher? No. On the other hand, I have often had thoughts about you and other teachers and about that institution which you call school and about the boys that you fail. On the other hand, I have often thoughts about you. Now here, students, you should remember when the author says I, it doesn't refer just to one person, but this I consists of 8 boys in their teenage. Okay, it refers to 8 boys who are in their teens. And these boys tell the teacher, "We have often had thoughts about you." Now, you here refers again not to a particular teacher, but to all kinds of teachers they had known in the school system. Okay, it refers to all the teachers who have taught them or will be teaching the other students. So the students think many times about their teacher. They think about the school in which they have studied, that institution, that place, that building which you call a school. But what happens in the school? Do these children have happy memories about their school? No. Why? Because they have failed. They have been failed by their teacher. They have not come out successful. And once they fail, what happens to these poor students? He tells the teachers, "You fail us right into the fields and factories, and then you forget us." What happens to these poor students who fail? They are not able to go back to school. They have to go and work in the fields. They have to work in the factories. They become laborers. They don't have any freedom. Had they passed, had the teacher helped them to pass the examination, their life would have changed for the better. But just like their parents or their elder brothers or sisters, what happens to them? They just go back to work. They become laborers. They have to go and do hard work in the field and in the factories while giving a test. You used to walk up and down between the rows of desks and see me in trouble and making mistakes, but you never said a word. This is also your same experience, students. When you are given a test in the class by the teacher, what does the teacher do? She walks up and down the rows of desks. She just supervises. She looks at what you are writing. But she doesn't help you to correct the mistakes that you have made in the answer paper. She never says a word. She never tells you what the mistake is. She just looks at your paper. She marks you. She doesn't give you marks. You are marked wrong there for the wrong answer. And no explanation is given. You do not know why you have failed. What is wrong with your answer? The teacher does not help the students to pass the examination. So they are accusing the teacher and telling her, if we have failed, it is because you have failed to help us to understand the lesson, help us to correct our mistakes. I have the same situation at home. No one to turn to for help for miles around. No books, no telephone. At home, he is faced with the same situation because he is a first generation learner, maybe, or his elder brothers or his parents, they have not gone to school. And so whenever they make mistakes, whenever they don't understand the lessons, whenever they are given homework, they're not able to complete their work. They're not able to read their lessons because there is no one at home who can help them to understand their lessons. So he thinks that the teacher will be able to help him, and he comes to the classroom. But what happens in the school? He does not receive any help from the teacher. So at home he has no one to help him, nor does he have anyone to help him at the school, because the teacher does not come out or go out of the way to help him. If you have understood the lesson, you have understood. If not, it's not the teacher's fault. The rich students, what will they do? They will go and take tuitions, or they will have their parents to help them at home, or their elder, somebody to help them, the tutor to help them at home. But what happens to the poor students? He thinks that the teacher will help him in the school. The teacher doesn't help him, nor does he get any help at home to study his lessons. The rich students have books, reference books, and so on. But the poor students do not even have a textbook. Again, you see, when you are not able to understand your lessons, when you are in doubt, maybe you make a phone call to your friend and ask them, what is this? I have not understood. Could you please explain? But these poor students did not even have a telephone at home to clear their doubts. So this is the situation that these poor peasant boys, the boys from the farming community, are faced with in this small village of Babiana. So students, we will stop here for now, and the rest of the text will be explained to you in the second part. Thank you.